All right, so we're in escrow, things are moving forward, and this is a question I get from buyers almost all the time. Christian, can the seller cancel on me? And I totally get why you're asking that. Because once your offer is accepted, it starts to feel real. You're spending money on inspections, you're working with your lender, you're mentally planning your move, and you're probably already picturing furniture in the house. So the idea of a seller pulling the plug on it feels stressful. But here's the good news. In most situations, sellers actually have very limited rights to cancel once you officially open up escrow. And buyers usually have more protection and more outs built into the contract than sellers do. Now, I'm going to explain this in a very simple way. As a buyer, you typically have multiple contingencies that protect you. That means if something comes up during your inspection period, your loan process, or the appraisal, you may have the option to negotiate or cancel depending on where we're at during the timeline. That's why those deadlines matter so much, because those are your safety nets. But on the seller side, they don't get the same flexibility. Once they accept your offer and we open up escrow, they're basically agreeing to follow through as long as you're performing on your end. So if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and we're moving forward in good faith, the seller usually can't just wake up one morning and say, never mind. And this is where the buyer gets confused because they think, what if the seller changes their mind? Or what if they get emotional? Or what if suddenly they decide they don't want to sell the house anymore? But once we're under contract, it's not that simple. A seller backing out without a valid reason can create legal issues. And that's why in most cases, sellers don't even try. Now, there are a couple of situations where a seller may be able to cancel, but they're very specific. One example is if the seller accepted your offer with a contingency that they need to find a replacement home, meaning they're only selling if they successfully find another home to move into. If that's the case, we would know up front and we would go into escrow fully aware of the risk. Another situation is the home doesn't appraise and the seller refuses to adjust the price and the buyer just can't cover the difference. That can turn into a deal breaker depending on how the negotiations go. But outside of scenarios like that, sellers don't have unlimited freedom to cancel. And here's the part I want you to remember. Escrow is a process, but it's also a commitment. That's why I always make sure we're protected, we stay on top of deadlines, and we keep everything moving forward the right way. Because the stronger and cleaner we are as a buyer, the less room there is for problems. So if you're watching this and you're already in escrow, just know this. You're not powerless. You're protected by the contract and you have a professional guiding you through it. And if anything changes or starts to feel a little weird during escrow, that's exactly why you have me.